Okay, so this happened about a bunch of years ago. I was about 16 years old at the time of this story, and this took place sometime in 2014. I already told this story before, but since I didn't go really into too much detail, or the fact that it wasn't really that good, I decided that I would tell it right here. Now, at the time of the story, I was 16 years old. I wasn't really allowed to have certain things. I was restricted from social media at the time, maybe until I was at least 16 years old. Before I was turning 16 years old, my mom let me get Facebook as she thinks that I was old enough to trust her when I'm using Facebook. She told me certain rules like 1, do not add anybody that I don't know. 2, always only add people that I know really well. 3, don't accept any friend requests that seem suspicious. And 4, never put anything on your social media that may contain your personal information. I followed this rule from my mom for a while, and I am very smart as you never know who could be behind the other screen seeing all this. Now, my mom was trying to protect me, so can understand her reasons for it. However, though, there was this one time that something really messed me up a little bit, and I kind of get skeptical when it comes to phone calls that know my real name or anything like that. Now, just to be completely fair, I was 16 and I didn't really know what to do if anything like this happened or if anyone was in this situation. Now, to cut to the chase, I was playing a Facebook game on my computer when my phone rang. It was a house phone, so this was before I had my cell phone. The only one who had this cell phone was my dad, in case if he was working and somebody needed to reach him and but can't get the house phone, then they could call his cell. We normally don't answer the house phones and only answer it if it was somebody looking for my mom, my dad, or maybe just any of my friends that I gave my house number to. Now, I went over to answer it thinking it might be a call from my dad. When I picked up, the voice said something on the other line. Hi, I'm Robin. I didn't know anybody named Robin, and I was confused as I've never heard of this Robin person. He then said stuff like, "Oh, I'm just a friend of your dad's," and etc. I started talking to him about random stuff because I was confused as to why he was calling. For at first I thought he could have like me have the wrong address as he was looking for somebody named Bella. I didn't know have anybody named Bella in the house. There was no person named Bella who lives at the house I was living at. So I thought that maybe he must have had the wrong number. I think you have the wrong number, I said. I hung up and didn't even bother answering the phone. The next day, though, my mom was in the kitchen when the house phone rang again. This time she went over and picked it up and said it was for me. I picked it up and it was Robin again. He started saying stuff, "Oh, you're Bella." I was very surprised and shocked. "My name isn't Bella," I said, trying to deny anything just to see if he can get the hint to leave me alone. But it didn't stop there, though. He ended up asking me some personal questions. I got really uncomfortable by it, so I stayed silent on the line. But then he said something that really messed me up. "You're my future wife," and then he hung up. As soon as I hung up, my mom immediately called the cops and explained the whole ordeal. The cops came and suggested suggestions like changing phone numbers and etc. We didn't want to change our house phone number, as we had known the one phone number for a while. Now, my parents didn't let me answer the phone if it was random numbers I didn't recognize for a while. Now, it went on for a while. My parents had to put restrictions on me when it comes to answering the phone. Now, my stalker kept calling me at least a couple times a month. Now, the next time was maybe a week or so later when he gave his name out and he said his name was James, Jason, Robin again, and etc. But my dad one time yelled at the phone, "If you call this number again, you're gonna be dead." When as soon as my dad said that, he hung up, and my stalker had never called me back since. I think he's given up, but although I was 16 at the time, this really still unnerves me. I really hope that he gets the help he needs or he's in prison for all I care. But one thing is for certain, this was my very first stalker encounter that I've ever had. Not in person though, but only on the phone. This took place when my friend Nicole used to take the train to work at the time of this story. I will not name where she was at the time, but she was working in Toronto at the time, and she had to take a train to get to one place to her other place, to where she works. Now, she didn't mind driving there, but most of the time driving there was a real pain, especially at the time when she had to leave very early and come back late at night. At the train, though, she can always just relax and won't have to worry about anybody or anything for that matter. Now, Nicole at the time was around her mid-20s, and this took place in 2015. She took the train that she normally does, but when she got the ticket and got onto the train, sitting not far from her was a man. Now, this man seemed to be about her age, and he seemed to be pretty chill. He engaged in a conversation with her. "Hey there," he said. Where are you heading?" Now, he seemed to be lost in train of thought, so Nicole said, "I'm heading to work." Nicole tried to make sure that she kept herself busy by looking at her phone or something in order to get the man to realize that she wasn't interested and that to leave her alone. But the man ended up keep talking to her about random things. Nicole played along and said stuff like, "Oh yeah, sure, not really." But however though, this kept on for a little bit, but the man eventually got the hint and left her alone. However though, when Nicole got it to her stop and she got out of her train, the man actually followed her. Now Nicole looked back to see the man was standing a couple feet behind her, and it wasn't really that great. The man's attention seemed to be very, very unsettling, so Nicole tried her best to keep herself busy as to get the man to leave her alone. She did this for at least a while, try going in different ways to get to some things, taking long ways and all that, just so he can get the hint to leave her alone. However though, at nighttime when she went to the train station, most of it was dead quiet though, as she missed her train. She waited for a bit, but saw the man right outside the tunnel. Outside the tunnel, or what seems to be the entrance of it, seemed to be the guy who seemed to be following her. "Can you quit following me? I'm busy right now and I have to get to work. I'm bloody tired," Nicole said to the man. But the man didn't seem to be fazed and actually said, I could just drive you home. I do have a car," he said. "I said no," Nicole said. Then this guy grabbed what seemed to be a knife and started to charge at Nicole. As soon as she saw that, she leaped out of the way, just in time for the guard to stop to shout, "Hey, what are you doing?" The man saw the guard and then took off. When the security guard went over to Nicole, making sure that she was okay, she explained that the guy had been stalking her and even been following her around. But this guard ended up having some very disturbing news for Nicole. This guy actually had stalked women around Nicole's age, and he had been plans to kidnap them. One of them, unfortunately, he killed, which was maybe sometime in 2012. Now, Nicole had no idea why this guy wanted to stalk her or even wanted to kill her or anything. But Nicole stopped taking the train because of that and drove her car to work from now on. Now, she is not really sure for certain if this man was ever caught, but her message to the guy in the train, "Let's not meet again, and if you ever do, this will be the last time you ever messed with me." Now, since that day though, Nicole still has not seen the man since, and she's not sure if he was still out there. I would like to think that he got arrested, but although that could be possible that he might have got arrested. But since then, though, Nicole has only driven to work since, and she's never took the train again. This happened to a friend of mine named Natalie, and she worked at the hospital at the time of this story. Now, this took place sometime during the pandemic, probably around early 2020. The hospital patients were getting really filled quickly with people for the virus cases and etc. Now, Natalie had to work overtime as she was focusing on making sure the patients get better from the virus that they were having. Now, this was during sometime in March or April, and our province and country were on lockdown. Now, Natalie at the time was very overworked, and most of the time she would get very, very stressful. As she worked at the hospital, however, she appeared to see that there was a man who seemed to be a doctor, or he claims to be. He was new to the job and he was put on to virus patients, so Natalie ended up introducing him to the job by explaining to him, certain things of what to do and what not to do, and etc. This went on for at least a few months, but sometime in June, though, this is when this dude, which he calls himself as Jake, was very creepy. Jake started following Natalie almost everywhere where she goes to check on patients. Can you stop following me? I don't need your help. When she said that, the doctor had a face of frown but walked the other direction away from her. Natalie had no idea why this guy was following her, but for some reason he seemed to be following her a lot. One day, though, she was instructed by one of the nurses to go to the basement to get a stretcher, as there was an emergency, or at least that they had known they had to take a stretcher to go to the emergency and needed more from the basement. So Natalie goes down to the basement, but upon she reached the stairs, she could see that somebody was entering the basement. It was this dude. Now, when she goes down there, she couldn't find the person. She thought that maybe Jake might have been going down here, maybe just to pull a sick prank. Natalie got the stretcher, and as soon as she did, the guy ended up grabbing her when she started screaming. Natalie ended up screaming, although her mouth was covered when Jake covered her mouth. She eventually found his knife on the ground when she punched him in the thigh, grabbed the knife and managed to stab him in the leg, causing him to let Natalie go. Natalie grabbed the stretcher and went back upstairs to the basement. When she got back to the hospital floor, she ended up telling the hospital exactly what happened and with the Jake person. They ended up going down to the basement and having a look, but they couldn't find Jake. And surprisingly enough, one of the receptionists walked up to Natalie and said something that Natalie had chills down her spine. We don't have a doctor named Jake. Okay, so this happened to one of my friends named Drake at the time of this story. Drake was one of the popular kids at school, and this happened to him when he was about 17 years old. Now, I was in the same class as him, and Drake and I were pretty good friends. He already had a girlfriend at the time, and that was fine with me since I already had a boyfriend. Now, at the time, this took place around maybe May of 2017. Drake had Twitter for a while after his parents had forbid him from having Twitter since he was 13 years old. His parents were very overprotective, but he had Twitter since 2016 and he's been doing quite well. I, on the other hand, didn't get Twitter till much later after this incident, but you get the idea. Now, Drake at the time was one of the popular students and he always liked to talk to people at school. He has talked to people such as on Facebook, Instagram, and etc. But at the time, though, he was into Twitter. When he was using Twitter one day, he had said to me that he broke up with his girlfriend as his girlfriend had very, very mental and messed up problems. They had argued so much where his girlfriend didn't want anything to do with him anymore. So Drake apparently was single. I told Drake that maybe he might have good luck catching girls such as on Twitter, as there are some people that do online dating. Now Drake thinks that this might be skeptical as he had never did online dating before. But since he was on Twitter though, he could care less of what happens. Now, while he was in class though, Drake was looking through Twitter and saw that a cute girl wanted to chat with him. Her name was Samantha, and she was a very beautiful girl. She was maybe just a year younger than Drake, maybe 16 and a half, but he didn't really mind, as she seemed to be very interested in what he does, such as working on cars and etc. So Drake started messaging Samantha, asking Samantha certain questions like what school did she go to and it goes to and etc. Now, Samantha and Drake's convo went something like this. Hey there, I just saw you on Twitter and I thought you want to chat. Oh, hey Jay. Hey Drake, I'm actually doing okay right now. Oh, that's cool. Do you want to chat sometime? Sure. This continued on for at least a good while as Drake and Samantha started talking backward and forward. However, though, something really strange began happening, though, when Drake realizes that Samantha hadn't talked to him in about a couple hours. He was getting worried about her, so he messaged her if she was okay and if something happened. But the messages became more apparent, though. Then, at least the next day, when Drake got back from school and he went on Twitter, his phone dinged as he got a message from Samantha, and it was a really messed up message. Hey, what's your house number? I really want to go. Oh, and meet you, he said. She said, but this was when Drake realizes that something was strange about it. He then ended up looking up to see that there was some sort of truck. Now this truck looks like a Ford, and he had been driving slowly past his house. This continued for a few days, and Drake ended up seeing the truck almost everywhere he goes. He then realizes that his girlfriend, or quote-unquote his friend that he quotes on Twitter, is stalking him. Now, the school had been aware of this, and they had provided safety measures, such as Drake to go with friends, if he was to go somewhere outside of school property, and etc. Now, Drake realizes that this Samantha person was actually someone trying to pose as her to lure cute guys into his trap. Now, about the account, Drake actually blocked the number and even blocked the account and closed his Twitter account for a while. Drake didn't get Twitter till sometime in 2019 when this Samantha girl never messaged him again, and whoever the person behind the Samantha account was didn't come back to haunt him. This still frightens Drake a lot, knowing that he had been catfished online, and that what would he have done if he told Samantha where his address was. Chances are something messed up could have potentially happened. But as of this, Drake had never talked to Samantha again.